It's nice to be here. I want to, first of all, thank Father Walsh for asking me. It's a true honor, and I consider it a blessing to be here amongst you fellas and to speak on what faith means to me. When I came in here and everyone was sitting down for breakfast, I could tell immediately that it was a men's breakfast because not one of you guys washed your hands. So that was good. Oh, except my father, of course. So, and saying that, and thank you for the kind words, Jim. So, in light of my profession, which is in entertainment, and I've been touring the country for the last 15 years in stand-up comedy, I thought that I would open up today's talk with a joke. Don't worry about it. You don't have to cover your ears. It's a Christian joke I found, and Father Walsh approved it. So, with that being said, this, my friends, is what faith means to me with this talk. A scientist went to God and said triumphantly, "We've worked out how to make a man without you." And God laughed and said, "Okay then, show me. Go ahead." So the scientist bent down and picked up a handful of dirt, but God stopped him. "Oh, no you don't," said God. "Get your own dirt." Good deal, right? You can laugh in the back. Father Walsh is laughing. It's good. It's all right. I think Father Steve's laughing too, so it's all right. We're good hands. But seriously, I like that joke because it humbles one back to the reality that no one can make man outside the realm of the Almighty. Yes, science provides us with many fascinating discoveries of human life, but it does not compare to the understanding that is found within the mystery of our religion. In relation to the aforementioned joke, enter humility, clarity, and humor. Humility, to be humbled by a power which cannot be truly understood, only studied. Clarity, knowing exactly where you stand on dirt. And humor, recognizing that God has the ultimate punchline with all of our lives. Coincidentally, I relate my religious faith to clarity, humility, and humor. Allow me to expound. I'm one of 8 children of Irish, Italian descent. I have 4 older sisters, 2 older brothers, and a younger brother. I'm number 7 of 8. I know that's comedy gold right there. My mother passed away of breast cancer in 1981, leaving my father, who never remarried, to raise all of us on his own. I remember that summer night of June 2nd when my mother passed. I can still recall the hollow silence that resounded when our father gave us the news. An immediate void seemed to reign upon us. But with all storms, calm follows, as a reminder that there is beauty everywhere, even when death is taking up temporary residence. I remember when my father gathering us all together saying that we would get through this delicate time with love, teamwork, and humor. I feel that my father used the clarity of his Catholic schooling at the Vincentian Institute in Albany, and eventually for the guidance he received at Siena College to work through my mother's death. I, too, approach my career in the arts with the same technique. Love for my work, teamwork in dealing with all sorts of personalities and keeping them together for the team, and humor, well, I pray that works because that's how I pay my bills. Clarity. I use clarity in the sense that on that June night in 1981, the veil which covered the secrecy of life was lifted, like that of a grieving widow who has lifted the veil in attempt of a new beginning. Life, as they say, just got real. Even though there was concrete clarity there, I couldn't grasp on how to express it with words or pen. So I suffered inside. I suffered immensely as a child with anxiety that would creep up and overwhelm me with a tsunami of emotion. I would write in my journal until my pen emptied of its ink. I couldn't communicate my feelings. And every day I longed for sanctuary, a place that would be my cornerstone and would make me feel safe. A place where my mind wouldn't race at 1,000 miles per hour and wouldn't leave me depleted like that of the ink of my pen. That place was church. At the moment in which I recognized my personal clarity was the day I surrendered to what my mind, body, and soul have always desired, internal peace. This left me free to recognize my shortcomings, a freedom of understanding myself in ways I thought not possible. The vulnerability of knowing that I sin was eye-opening, and knowing that I can enter church with a satchel of concerns and leave them at the foot of the Lord is, yes, difficult for me, but He grants me the peace I yearn for when the trials and tribulations of life abound. Clarity. Humility. Now, growing up one of 8 kids is super awesome and fun. Were there difficult times when disputes would arise? Absolutely. And with those times comes a feeling that one wants to hide from society. However, once one is awaking to their personal dose of this emotion, the world can open up like that of a broken dam to reveal fragile, vulnerable traits. And in my opinion, one can only grow from there. Humility, by definition, is the quality of being humble. I'm humbled every week when I enter through the church's doorway. Humbled to an ancient feeling of quiet contemplation that takes my worries of humility and delivers them to the Lord, which allows Him to heal my heart. Jesus heals the sorrow of me being humbled by my missteps, and also, too, by my good deeds. Allow me to explain that. In 2009, I was humbled with humility on a mission trip to Honduras and Central America. This was through the College of St. Rose in Albany. I spent 2 weeks living and working among some of the poorest people in the world. I thought these people might be angry with God for being poor. However, I learned a very valuable lesson. They may have been poor financially, but they were not bankrupt in their faith. They were happy, family-oriented people. Their smiles could light up a December night. I often thought to myself while I was there, how could these people not be angry with God? As if God had forgotten about them. When I talked with the people about how I felt, they smiled and playfully yelled at me, saying how much they loved their lives. Could their lives be better in certain ways? Yes, they'd answered, but we have life. We have family, we have the air in our lungs, and we have faith. I thought that was quite powerful. You know, I was beckoned to that mission trip by a flash of wisdom, and God guided me to Central America to unlearn what I thought I was well aware of, humility. Now, humor. Humor is my outlet. It's also where God gets even with me. Even now at 42 years old, He continuously gets even with me, as you can tell by my fat head and my alien-like fingers. It's all a joke from God, but I take it. Excuse me. I jest, of course. But I do feel that the Lord had a great sense of humor. I can only imagine the humorous tales that must have been told around the campfires, a time for Jesus to break away from the heaviness of His fate. It's like that with our lives too. We all have a destiny to live a life which is not perfect, and by understanding this, we can try to grow each and every day with the infinite wisdom our Lord has instilled in us. When I was growing up, after church on Sundays, we would go to my paternal grandmother's house for lunch and dinner. This went on every Sunday until I was 20 years old. My grandmother was great. She was like our second mother and was very helpful to my father. One of her greatest qualities was her sense of humor. Every week she had a new joke. She was the life of the party in regards to her humor, very religious as well, and she made sure that we thanked the Lord for each day He granted us life. Aside from her quick wit and joke-telling abilities, she would make us look at the world at large in different ways. She'd humble us and say, you know, your situation with your mother passing is a terrible and difficult part of life that you must endure. Believe that there must be a reason in why the Lord has taken her to His kingdom. Things could always be worse. Those are powerful words to say to a 7-year-old. And when she'd say them, I'd respond, that's true, Grandma, but things could always be better too. She'd smile, knowing that it was in jest, and made me feel that it was okay to joke about the insecurities and uncertainties of life, and that gave me an even more real connection to God, and in doing so, with a smile. I kept the lessons of humor in mind when my grandmother unfortunately died in an automobile accident on my 20th birthday. The ironic thing is she never even had a driver's license, never drove a day in her life. She was a passenger in a friend's car. The anger I had in my youth was quick to rise again, but I kept hearing the soothing voice of my grandmother and the wisdom she taught me, knowing that we each owe a debt and there are no exceptions. I thought of her joke-telling and the funny stories we shared around her kitchen table, and I could feel her smile down from above. Humor allowed my family and I to get through another difficult time when our faith was shaken once again. This time, the year was 2013, when my beautiful sister-in-law Christine lost her courageous battle with breast cancer. I truly felt for my older brother John, whose wife was Christine, and what he must have been feeling deep inside. Question, doubt, discouragement, anger. You see, this is where God sends you messages of how strong you believe your faith to be. My sister-in-law, for example, was the same age as my mother when she died, 43. My brother's name is John, as is my father's name. Their oldest child was 14, as was my brother when my mother passed. And my sister-in-law asked that she be buried next to my mother. We did as she asked and buried her on a beautiful spring day on what would have been my mother's 75th birthday. How's that for feeling like a bolt of lightning just hit you twice? It's not easy to swallow, but I kept the voice of my grandmother in my head and kept hearing her say to keep our chins up, regroup, pray, hug one another, and remember to laugh about the good times we all shared. Humor. With His grace, God is guiding me to open up and to share my story. I feel He has forgiven the anger I possessed in my youth towards the death of my mother and my rants against Him of why, God, why. His voice has never been louder. His voice has never been clearer. His voice has never been more deliberate. My life is quite different than most people in this room, and that's what I love about this existence, truly. The lessons of learning from your family, your friends, and your neighbors are the essentials to a balanced life. Nothing is perfect. Nothing is certain. Nothing should be taken for granted. Nothing is what you're left with when you haven't any faith. Faith is where I find peace. Faith is where I receive clarity. Faith is my cornerstone. Amen. I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a blessed New Year. Father Walsh, thank you very much for having me here this morning, and thank you all for listening, and I wish you all peace.